Hello and welcome to episode 2 of Vintage Van Life. In my last episode I was sleeping in a tent and the camper, and it was all a bit kind of cold and rough, and I had a lot of messages from friends and things who watched the episode saying this isn't on, you can't be living like this, and circumstances have changed, so I will show you my new accommodation. So here it is. This is a very, very comfortable and spacious room, and I have everything that I need in here. So I have an ensuite, so I've got a shower, bath, toilet, everything you want, everything you need. I've got this very, very comfortable bed, and I've got a nice area to do my video editing with my laptop. So I'm a lot more comfortable and set up here, and I even brought my teas made with me, which serves me well every morning. So this accommodation actually belongs to some very good friends of mine. This is a small holding farm, and I practically grew up here. So when my parents were both working during the summer holidays and things when I was a kid, I used to come here, and this really is like a home away from home. And the family here have always been like a kind of second family to me. Now this annex where I'm currently living wasn't here when I was a kid. It's been added to since then, and it's the most wonderful space. And it's like coming home being back here, so it's really nice. And once they heard about the predicament I was in, there was no hesitation at all to say, come and stay with us. You know, you got your privacy, but you can come and socialise and everything. And it's also allowed me to crack on with the camper a lot more. Now that I'm not trying to live in it whilst I'm doing it up, has really kind of made everything easier. And it's so luxurious. I mean, just look at this room, it's beautiful. And you know, we still got wet, rainy, icy mornings and things, and it's nice waking up in here and going and have a hot shower rather than waking up in a freezing cold tent. Today is tank painting day for the Renault, and hopefully the patch that I put on there yesterday will prevent leaks. I've been out in my trusty Reliant today, which is serving me well, and in the back is the tank. I'm going to spray the tank now with just Hammerite paint, just to give it a layer of protection and make it look pretty. So if you're using spray paints, it's always good to have some kind of protection from the fumes, and of course difficult to find face masks nowadays. Not. So I've done the first layer on one side. I'll give it 2 or 3 depending on just when it looks like it's done. It doesn't have to be anything special or pretty because it's just going to get caked in mud anyway. The first 2 layers are done on one side, so you can kind of see the difference here. It might look a bit rough, but after all, this tank has got a lot of kind of dents and scrapes, and it's been patched so many times. But it's a fuel tank at the end of the day, no one's going to see it, and as long as it doesn't leak, that's fine. So this area here is where I did the fiberglassing yesterday, and underneath that, where it was actually seeping, I used this kind of metal putty stuff, which you mix with a chemical, and you get a few minutes whilst it's still like clay, and you put it in and you try to squeeze it into the gaps, and then it sets as metal. And then just to protect that and give it a layer, I've put the fiberglass over the top of it, and then the Hammerite. So once this layer is dry, it's still ever so slightly sticky, I'll turn it over and I'll do the other side, and that will be ready to go back into the van. If I could give kind of any advice about using spray cans and things, you want to make sure you don't hold this too close to the metal, because I've seen people do that and it will just splash back everywhere and leave run marks and things. And I know this is just a fuel tank, but you want to give it a good few inches, you know. And also, quite often people will spray continuously, but what I was taught when I was an apprentice was you kind of, when you stop, when you get to the end and you actually let go, so instead of going like this, you actually go and you dust coat it, so the first layer won't look particularly good, but if you try and put it on too thick, it will just run like mad. So I literally just kind of go there. So it doesn't look particularly thorough, but it's good to get that first kind of coats just to establish the paint, and then when you do the second coat you pretty much do the same thing and you build up the layers. Don't try and get the finish you want on the first coat because it will just run like mad. Well, I'd say I'm sufficiently happy with that. It's nice and kind of protected. I've been donated by the owners of this place this inner tube, which I'm going to use to cut strips of rubber, because where the metal bands held this tank in, there used to be rubber seals in between kind of gaskets, because as the tank shakes about it will obviously cause chafing, so I need to make sure it's got those again, and the old ones literally just fell to bits when I took them out. But this will be perfect for that. As much as I'd like to just crack on with the camper van every day, I do still have to work at the moment, so I haven't got much time now until I start my shift. So I think I'll have to leave this to dry and fit it in the camper van tomorrow, and hopefully bring the camper van here where it will be a lot easier to work on it. Well, good morning to everyone. Today is fuel tank fitting day. So the fuel tank is in here. The paint should all be completely dry, so I'm going to climb underneath and fit the thing. Luckily, one of the things about this vehicle is it's so high up off the ground, I can actually get underneath it without having to jack it up, which does save some time and fiddling about. So the fuel tank mounts just behind where the differential is, and it's got these metal straps which they're kind of hanging down. There's one here and one there, and they actually they actually go underneath the tank, and they just bolts onto these nuts and bolts here. They've cut the inner tubes to length so they can go wrap around the tank, and I've obviously not used the bits that have the valves on them. When I've been carrying this tank and turning it upside down and, you know, lengthways and all of that, you could hear a lot of grit moving around in there. And when I tried tipping it out, I found this pipe actually goes further in than where the skin of the tank is. So when you tipped it out to try and come out of here, it would just get stuck around the rim. So I turned it up on its end, bashed it a bit and made all the grit fall down here, and then just got Henry Hoover down there, suck it all out, and there doesn't seem to be any rattling anymore, so hopefully the tank is as clean as it can be. Okay, good morning. The camper van has moved location, and I'm very pleased to say there doesn't appear to be any leaks from the fuel tank. I've taken off the old interior light, so it's still kind of half disassembled up there, and when it's fully intact it's quite a nice looking thing, but it doesn't emit much light, and these old bulbs do take up a lot of electricity compared to the modern LED counterpart. So although I'm going to have LED lighting in the living space, I didn't want to get rid of this nice light, so I thought it could actually be perfect as an interior cab light, just for when you're opening the door and trying to find your keys and all of that kind of thing. So a little bit of repurposing. The light is now gone, and I can't help but feel it's going to be a long time until I reinstall it somewhere. I'm moving on to taking off this structure here. I believe this is non-original. It looks homemade, particularly judging by the kind of mismatch of bolts that they've used. But this used to be a kind of storage space above the cab when that skin used to be up there. And I've clouted my head on this so many times now that it's just beyond painful. But because the roof is being raised up, I probably won't need this to be there anymore. So I'm going to take it out, because eventually I'm hoping to have a nice double-skinned wall here dividing the cab from what will be the living space. You see, it's all about imagining and seeing how it could be rather than how it currently is, and kind of making it up as I go along. So this central strip inside here, it may go back in at a later stage, but it's causing me some issues with rust and polystyrene that I can't get out of. And I've seen this model of truck before, the Renault Golette. They don't seem to have this, so this is something that's been kind of quickly added afterwards. So I'm just going along and drilling the rivets out, and then I'm going to pop them with a screwdriver and a hammer, so I don't want to make any holes in the roof, because obviously that would cause leaks. So to work I go. Blimey. Woo! Wow. That is rusty as hell. Well, that's that job done. Ah, oh, there is rust everywhere. Better go and get the hoover. I don't know how many times I've hoovered in here already, but this strip is out, and as you can see, where the damp had been sitting up there, I think they must have painted this after that was put on, because the metal here, which has been unpainted, as you can see, is just really rusty. I did manage to get a hole in the top there. I don't think I'm entirely to blame. Well, I probably am, but it was very rusty and it just kind of pulled through, so that's going to have some work. Yep, so I've made myself a very small skylight out here. The more I do on this camper, the more interesting it becomes and the more questions that are raised. So this bit here is actually where I was working, where I had the metal frame that I removed. This is the join, and it just makes you wonder that this maybe it was like a flatbed truck or something, and they've added the roof here because there's a very clear join which does not look like a factory finish. So I'd love to find out, maybe this was a completely different vehicle when it was new. So the last bit of this structure here is actually welded on, not riveted, so I'm going to have to cut it. I certainly can't take credit for doing all the work on the camper myself, as my mum is helping huge amounts pretty much every day. And she's hard at work inside. Hello Mum.
Hi.
What are we up to today?
Right, well I've done a lot of the hoovering, but I'm just going along the top here where there's bits of polystyrene that I've got to try and get out with the screwdriver as well, because the hoover nozzle won't actually remove them. So that's what I'm going to do now.
Excellent.
Right.